apples are and that they could be apples. I'm pretty certain you're not growing them all in your garden, so you have to buy them from somewhere, right? Of course, you might buy them from fresh produce sometimes, but most of the time you're going to be buying them in the supermarket and they look all shiny and everything like that. For some reason, most people have been thinking that apples are like a few days old once they're in the supermarket, and are now horrified finding out the truth. Apples in the supermarket, when you're walking down and picking one up, are normally over a year old.
Come again?
Like they've just been sat there, rotting.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, don't worry. I'm gonna tell you guys what we do right now, man. We break down the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG videos, Facebook, anything weird, usual, and unexplained you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man, who's coming back to the channel each and every single day, watching the videos entirely, man, commenting down below, and most importantly, hitting that thumbs up button on these videos. You guys can help grow the community. I greatly appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do what we do best, seekers. Stay with me, y'all. Seek the truth.
Evolved to live on the ocean. The Bajau people found on the waters of Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines live their entire lives on houseboats. It's understood they've retained this lifestyle for around 1,000 years. They spend most of the day diving into the ocean, hunting fish and other sea creatures. But here's where things get really interesting. They can hold their breath underwater for up to 13 minutes and dive as far down as 60 meters. Due to the pressure of the water that far down, some actually pierce their eardrums, which is actually really bad for them. Some of them go deaf. Now, the reason they're able to hold their breaths underwater for so long is because they evolved larger spleens in comparison to other humans, providing more oxygen to their blood. Their spleens tend to be at least 50% larger than ours. Isn't that interesting?
The strangest.
That's basically like a land that's confirmed, right? Maybe they descendants of them, man, from way in the past, bro. So if you can dive that deep and they hold their breath that long, and they're born that way too, so there's some extra attributes that got me thinking, man, that they had some relatives from from Atlantis back in the day, bro. You never know.
Fact about each zodiac sign. Okay, firstly, it's scientifically proven that if you're a Gemini, you're good at lying. So the next time you're around a Gemini, you might not want to believe everything they say. Alright, next, if you're a Taurus, the strangest fact about you guys is you all are known to be stalkers. The scary thing is, you might never know they're doing this. Now, this one creeps me out. Out of all the signs, Scorpios are the ones who have the most dark and creepy thoughts. But my question is, what do you all be thinking about? Well, if that wasn't bad enough, Cancers are proven to be the most dangerous. They get arrested the most, and the crimes are usually pretty serious. I'm sorry to say, but if you're a Leo, it's proven that you guys are the worst drivers. Finally, this is probably the most unusual fact of them all. If you're an Aries, it's said that you are obsessed with death. This just doesn't sit right with me.
Here's three things you need to understand about polar bears. They're one of the few animals that will actively hunt humans, as in track you down and put you on a meal prep if they're desperate enough. And unlike other bears, polar bears are hypercarnivores, meaning they don't do the bugs and berries thing. Now, for them, it's all meat all the time. Which leads to the next fact, and it's that they're bloodhounds on steroids. A polar bear can sniff out a seal for well over 10 miles, and they can even smell one through 3 feet of ice. They'll smell you long before they see you, which is why if you do see a polar bear, it's probably already too late. There's a good chance it's been plotting on you for a minute. And number 3, studies say one way to survive a polar bear encounter is to remove articles of clothing and drop them one at a time. That way the Caucasian killer will get distracted and stop to examine them. Which sounds great until you remember, you can't outrun, outswim, or even dig deep enough to hide from one. And they live in hell frozen over. So you either get to freeze to death and die naked, or wait for the bear to eventually track you down like Liam Neeson. Moral of this video, if it's black, attack. If it's brown, get on the ground. If it's white like the president, you finna be heaven sent.
Okay, stay away from polar bears. Noted. I didn't know, man, that they were freaking bloodhounds like that. The more you know, man. So you won't drop your clothes, bro. Drop them drawers. You gotta survive. You know what that says.
This girl started going blind until scientists discovered.
Horned lizards squirt blood from their eyes. The Devil's Bible is a real book. If the sun exploded, you would not know about it for 8 minutes. 20% of children report hearing voices. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you. Part 2. A French president died from a blowjob. My man Felix Faure literally got his soul sucked out of him. He was both coming and going. The deadliest female serial killer in American history had murdered 35 people with an axe by the time she was 18 years old. When the ruler of Poland, Jadwiga, was considering a marriage proposal from the Grand Duke of Lithuania, her peers were worried because it was rumored that he had massive genitals and would kill his wife on the wedding night. They ended up sending 2 spies to Lithuania to find out if it was true, and they came back and happily reported that there was nothing to worry about. Powdered wigs were originally invented to cover up head sores caused by syphilis. The first person to examine semen under a microscope was Antony van Leeuwenhoek, the father or daddy of microbiology.
Urban legends caught on camera.
And now I guess he became a legend because of that, bro. Oh, these facts, bro, are tripping me out. Would you guys survive the rake? Or was that just a clever edit? You know that's wrong. It's 2025, baby. We made it, man.
If a mother was caught having an affair with her son, they were both burned to death. This was one of the 282 official laws of the Code of Hammurabi, one of the first ever written set of laws in history dating back to 1750 BC in ancient Babylon. And yo, these laws get absolutely wild. If a man ever broke another man's bone, by law, he would have to have that same bone broken on him. If a son ever hit his father, the code demanded that the son's hands be cut off. If a son simply told his father, "You're not my dad," the law stated that the son would need to get his tongue cut off. If a home was ever robbed, the thief would need to be taken back to the home, killed there, and then buried. Hey, I don't want no thief dying in my house. If a wife was ever caught cheating, law stated that her and the cheater would need to be tied up and thrown into a river. If a man ever killed a pregnant woman, then his daughter would be put to death. I don't get the logic here, but that's what it was. If a wife ever cooked a dinner that didn't taste good, then her husband would have to backhand her in the face. Nah, I'm joking, I made that up. But crimes that couldn't be proven would be placed under trial. Except their trials consisted of the accused jumping into a river. If they drowned and died, they were considered guilty, and then the accuser would have legal possession of their home. But if they swam to safety, then the accuser would instead be put to death, and the accused would have legal possession of their home. Man, we come a long way. Think about these next time you're paying for a parking ticket.
We have, bro. Those
Most
balls
scary urban
today.
legends, part
Go.
6. This is Krasue. She's a Thailand legend. She's a female spirit who wanders the fields at night. At first you would just see her face, until you look down and she has no body, and just her internal organs. Her guts are usually covered with fresh red blood. Her face appears to look somewhat like a vampire's. She has very sharp teeth, and sometimes has a blue halo around her head. She is always hungry for meat, whether that be animal meat or human meat. Before she goes hunting, she hides her headless body somewhere safe, and she needs to come back to it before sunrise. And then she becomes a normal person again for the day with no differences from anybody else. One of her origins was that she was a princess who was forced to marry a high-ranked Seminese member who killed her people in battle. But she loved somebody else and was caught with it by the Seminese member. She was then sentenced to be burned alive. She then asked the witch for help, who summoned a spell on her immune to fire, but the spell worked too late, and everything was burned besides her internal organs and head.
Krasue. Be aware.
They say if you see this tree, your day is going to be ruined. Which is impossible because this tree is extinct. This is the lepidodendron tree, or the scale tree, which thrived during the Carboniferous period and went extinct at the end of the Permian some 250 million years ago. These trees were found in more tropical areas and could grow up to 160 feet tall and had these signature diamond-shaped scale impressions on their bark. According to the story, if you do see one of these trees, you may have gone through a rip in the fabric of space and time. Now, there are no shortage of videos out there with people claiming they've seen this thing, getting it on video, showing a weird-looking tree, but none of these are actually a lepidodendron tree. As it turns out, this started making the rounds online after this meme was created in late 2023, resulting in tons of people filming trees or cell phone towers. They kind of look like a lepidodendron, but they really weren't. However, with all of the experiments that CERN has been doing lately, maybe there's actually something strange going on in the fabric of space and time. And if you do find one of these trees, remain calm.
Be careful who you're...
Never seen one of those trees before, man, but I guess now I'm gonna be on the lookout, bro. Like you said, man, the things CERN been messing with, who knows, they could have opened, like I said, a rip into the space and time portal, and we could have went in and we would have never known. Be on the lookout for those trees.
Alone with in Japan, you might run into a Hone-onna. In Japanese mythology, the Hone-onna, or bone woman, is a spirit whose face, hands, and neck appear to be that of a young, attractive female. However, the rest of her body bears no flesh at all. She uses her beauty to seduce young, unsuspecting men, luring them to a dark and secluded spot. Once they're alone, however, she reveals her true form to her victim, sucking his life force energy and leaving him as nothing more than a pile of dust. Other legends claim that the Hone-onna are the spirits of young women who have died but cannot move on from their lovers in life. To their loved ones, they appear as a beautiful young woman, and they visit them every night, but everyone else can see their true form. But every time they visit their loved ones, they suck some of their energy, until eventually they die or someone intervenes. Comment, I do not claim any negative energy from this video, and follow for more.
Energy vampire, bro. That's what it sound like. Just feed off your energy to, like you said, you're nothing but some bone. You can interpret that in different ways, man. We learned it today. We know what that is.
Urban legends from around the world. The Green Theater, located in the city Kyiv in Ukraine. It is said that this land was originally a burial site for suicide victims and unborn babies. This site was also once a fortress. There are hundreds of miles of catacombs under the ground. There have been a ton of unexplained accidents that occurred here, including countless building fires. Local legend says that there is a portal to another world down in the catacombs. Now home to a popular venue that you can actually buy tickets to for 2021. What country is next?
This video is going to show you how the world is actually doing better than ever. Nearly half of all children in the world were dying before their 5th birthday in the year 1800, and now that is less than 5%. You can see here that only 10% of adults in the year 1800 could read and write, and now that number is almost 90. 100 years ago, basically nothing was protected on Earth, and now almost 15% of the entire Earth is protected by national parks. Smoke particles in the air have gone down by over half. In just 35 years, the share of people with water has gone up 30%. Equal rights for women has become the standard in just a little over a century. Battle deaths per 100,000 people has gone down quite a lot. This shows a drastic improvement of how much oil is actually being spilled into the ocean. Deaths from disasters are way down. And world hunger is constantly on the downfall. We still have a lot of work to do, but the world is not all that bad. Scrolling on social media or watching the news can make it really hard sometimes to feel like anything in the world is actually going right. But when we're able to just take a breath, take a moment, and try and see things from a different perspective, there's a lot of good in the world to see, and we don't have a lot of time on Earth to enjoy it. Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Sharks are older than the rings of Saturn by hundreds of millions of years. If you were given $10,000 every single day since the pyramids were built, you would only have about 6% of Elon Musk's entire wealth. To give a clear picture of the difference between a million and a million seconds ago was a little over a week ago. A billion seconds ago was the year 1990. Jimmy Carter was the first president to be born in a hospital. Obama was the first president born under the same American flag he served as president under. Harriet Tubman was born in Thomas Jefferson's lifetime and died in Reagan's. There were Greek playwrights who wrote shows nearly 2,000 years before Shakespeare was even alive. Follow for more.
He just cooked So Shakespeare was fake, man?
These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. One of your photos that you have today will be used in your funeral. There are more slaves today than any other time in history. According to the founder of the Walk Free Foundation, there are 46 million slaves in the world today. Your eyes can still move after your death for 15 to 30 seconds. Watching TV for more than 2 hours a day can shorten your life expectancy by 1.4 years. In 1977, we received a radio signal from space that lasted 42 seconds. To this day, no one knows where that signal came from. A lit candle causes more than 15,000 house fires every year. Spider rain could happen at any moment above you. Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise in the 2017 version of It, was born in 1990, the year the original It was released. Yeah.
It's like it was lined up for him, bro. Like, do you know how, like, I guess the coincidence of that happening, he being born the year It came out and he played the clown? Some things just line up in the universe.
We talked about the satanic idol from the Warrens Museum, but today we're talking about the Doll of Shadows. According to Ed Warren, this doll was created with the intent of causing harm through dark rituals. The face is made out of a papier-mâché material, while the mouth is fitted with a single human tooth on the inside. Black feathers are placed on top of the doll's head, while nails and animal bones protrude from the doll itself. The story behind it is a young couple of doll collectors pick up this item from an antique dealer, who practically gives it away to them. I mean, warning sign number 1. On the first night that the couple brings the doll home, they go to bed and everything is normal, until both of them experience a series of horrific nightmares. And when they wake up, it's claimed that there's scratches all over their bodies. The following night, they experience another series of nightmares. Except this time, they wake up with distinct claw marks all over their bodies. Fearing that things will only continue to amplify, they reach out to the Warrens. Ed goes to their home and they just say, "Take it, just take it." And ever since, the doll has remained in the care of the Warrens. Over the years, Ed shared the process of how this doll would be used. It's claimed that somebody practicing dark magic would first take a photo of the doll. The photo would be printed, and on the back, a curse would be written. That photo would then be sent to the victim. Through the gesture of the recipient opening the envelope, it was symbolic of them accepting the curse that was written on the back of the photo. Furthermore, once that recipient saw the image of the doll, that meant the doll could then be projected into their dreams. But none of y'all tried to send me a photo with this doll and some scribble on the back. I'm not playing that game. Ed stated that the doll couldn't just be destroyed, since it acts as a vessel for the negative entity. So that brings us to, what item do you want to talk about next? A big thank you to those who recommended this topic on the last video. And aside from paranormal, I love all things true crime, spooky, unusual. So if you have any other suggestions on videos that you'd like to see, please feel free to comment below.
Oh, burn that joint. Get that away from me. I don't do no creepy ass dolls. I'm so bad. I do not allow, man. And I want to have like some bad creepy energy to it too. Nah.
The only way that you can get rid of it is by hugging it, so that you can untie its bonds. Fooling around with me, this son bitch will be here forever. Majority of these souls come back just to take care of unfinished business. It seeks for the living to untie its body so that it can be released. This is the legendary ghost by the name of Pocong. You can find them in Indonesia and also Malaysia. Their bodies have to be tied in 7 different places in order to stay intact. The Indonesian people also stated that these motherfuckers can hop, float, and teleport, and they are highly aggressive. The thing is, it's very popular for people to dress up as Pocong on Halloween. Don't jump out on me. I'm letting y'all know now. My heart weak. I wouldn't be able to take that shit. I got something for you. Wanna scare a grown man? I got that heat for your ass. This is really some scary urban legend shit. They believe after a person dies, their soul will wander Earth for 40 days. Now just imagine that you're walking in a graveyard, 12 o'clock in the morning, and you see a tall white body bag jumping towards you like an Easter bunny. What's your next move?
Deuces, bitch.
Halloween candy to make sure. On Halloween night in 1974, Ronald
Ronald O'Brien poisoned his own children's Halloween candy by lacing large pixie sticks with cyanide. After a night full of trick-or-treating, the family returns home where Ronald tells his children that they could each have one piece of candy before bed. And horrifically, his 8-year-old son Timothy chooses to eat the pixie stick. Just when you think that this case can't get worse, it does, because when 8-year-old Timothy opens the pixie stick and starts to eat it, he complains immediately that it tastes bitter because of the cyanide, and his father had the heart to just look at this little face and tell him, "I'll get you Kool-Aid to wash it down," very well knowing what was going to happen. Ronald would later tell police from the moment that he gave Timothy the Kool-Aid and shut the door, it took only 30 seconds until Timothy started to cry, "Daddy, Daddy, my stomach hurts." He was in the bathroom, convulsing, vomiting, and gasping, and then suddenly he went limp. Tragically, on the way to the hospital, Timothy passes away less than an hour after eating the candy. Immediately, this crime sent shockwaves through the community, initially sparking widespread fear that a stranger had tampered with the candy. However, suspicion quickly fell on Ronald when investigators uncovered his financial troubles, since he was more than $100,000 in debt and recently took out life insurance policies on both his children. During the investigation, it was discovered that he had also handed out more poisoned candy to other children that night, but fortunately, none of them consumed it. Prior to Halloween night, police discovered that Ronald had contacted multiple chemical companies to buy cyanide and even jokingly asked them how much it would take to end somebody's life. In 1975, Ronald O'Brien was convicted of murder and was later executed by lethal injection in 1984. Although he never admitted guilt, and even in his last words, he denied any wrongdoing. Ultimately, his crime left a lasting mark on Halloween in America, fueling paranoia around tainted candy for years to come. In the end, I'm glad that this monster got what he deserves. I can't comprehend what kind of person could harm any kid, let alone their own kid.
One of the Santa serial killer. If you haven't seen part 1, go back and watch it because this is the crazy ending to the case. After finding these sickening pictures on Bruce's computer, police decided to go and arrest Bruce. Police swarmed his house and could not believe what they found. Inside was a man tied up in Bruce's bedroom, tied to his bed with a bag over his head. If they had been any later, this would be Bruce's 9th victim. Luckily, by getting there when they did, they saved his life. This was not the only disturbing discovery when they arrested Bruce. As he was a landscape gardener, they decided to investigate the properties he'd been linked to. Police searched a customer's garden and found that Bruce had put large plant pots in the customer's garden. They took cadaver dogs round and they alerted to the fact that there were dismembered human body parts in these plant pots. Bruce was given life without the possibility of parole for 25 years, which I do think is so short for 8 killings. He will be 91 when he is eligible.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your life. Coconuts kill more people than sharks every year. Same with cows. Vending machines are actually twice as likely to kill you than a shark is. France was still executing people via guillotine when the first Star Wars film came out. There are more fake flamingos in the world than real ones. There are more tigers in Texas than the rest of the world. There's enough iron in your body to make a 3-inch nail. Beethoven and George Washington were alive at the same time. In fact, George Washington was in his 40s when Beethoven was born. There are more stars in space than there are grains of sand on every beach on Earth. It rains diamonds on Saturn and Jupiter. A buttload is an actual unit of measurement, equivalent to 126 gallons. Hit the plus sign if you want to learn more facts.
The thing that's killing me, man, when they said there's more tigers in Texas than anywhere else, bro. That's that meme. What the hell is a polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas, bro? That's the meme that came shit to my head when I heard that, man. And it rains diamonds on Saturn and Jupiter, bro. You go there, man, you're gonna be rich.
This is some dark stuff going on around the world that the public definitely doesn't know about. Up first, humanity has wiped out 60% of the animal population since 1970. Just think about that for a second. 60% of all animal population has been wiped out. This is absolutely crazy, and we use all of these resources for food and clothes and just stuff like that. But when you hear that we killed 60% of the animal population, it kind of makes you think, right?
It do.
Next up, we all know the mega city that Saudi Arabia is building called Neom. But did you know Saudi Arabia is sentencing people to death who refuse to move out of their homes so they could actually build the mega city Neom?
and their relatives are being sentenced to multiple decades of prison time just for protesting and posting their support to the cause on social media. This is absolutely sickening, and I can't believe nobody is talking about this. This next one is going to keep us all up at night, but bacterial resistance to antibiotics is at an alarming level. There has already been instances of pan-antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria. This can throw us back to the pre-antibiotic era, which will effectively mean if you catch an infection, you will die, just like in the 1400s. Finally, women are going missing from Indian reservations across some of the United States. Many are young women and are probably being used for sex trafficking. I wonder why they're taking Indian women from Indian reservations, and I wonder why sick stuff happens like this on Earth every single day.
Those clips, man, opened my mind, especially the one, man, about they said the animal population 60%.
Urban legends from around the world. The Luna Park Ghost Train Fire, located in Milsons Point, Australia. Here's the story. On June 9th, 1979, a devastating fire broke out at Luna Park. Said to be an electrical fault and 7 lives were lost. Here's where it gets weird. This is the last photo of Damien Godson. Him, his father, and his brother all died in the fire. This strange man approached them hours before the fire. He placed his hand on the little boy's head and the photo was taken. To this day, nobody knows who that is and why he was there. Legend says he was dressed up as the god Moloch, who asked for children to be sacrificed by fire. What do you think, foreshadowing or just a weird coincidence? Which country is next?
People are freaking out after realizing how old their apples are and that they could be unaliving you. Apples, I'm pretty certain you're not growing them all in your garden, so you have to buy them from somewhere, right? Of course you might buy them from fresh produce sometimes, but most of the time you're going to be buying them in the supermarket and they look all shiny and everything like that. For some reason, most people have been thinking that apples are like a few days old once they're in the supermarket, and are now horrified finding out the truth. Apples in the supermarket, when you're walking down and picking one up, are normally over a year old.
Come again?
Like they've just been sat there, rotting. Probably asking how come they don't rot, because like the average lifespan is about 5 to 7 days. Normally they're just put in some ultra storage that keeps them fresh, but normally they're also coated in a special type of wax, which doesn't sound pleasant. Essentially it keeps them fresh and looking shiny, so you think brand new gunk. People have been testing this out on social media recently and like skinning the top of them and getting the wax. Of course, the wax is not good for you, so eating them actually isn't as good as you think it is. But let me know if you do this and I'll see you in the next one.
So if you're...
I've always been wondering when I used to go in the supermarket stuff, man, you see like a shiny coat like the apples. Because shiny now we know they put wax on it, man. I need to test that out. Next time, man, buy a freaking apple from the supermarket, see if they got that wax on it, bro. We only do fresh, not whatever they trying to just stick out there. Be aware.
In the United States in the Northeast area, you may have heard of this, but apparently there's these stories about legendary beings that live in the forests of Michigan, Connecticut, and Ohio. Basically, it's about these creatures that look remotely human, but they have these bulbous, melon-shaped heads. To summarize the legend of the melon head creatures, the story goes that when an asylum for the criminally insane burned down, a bunch of patients escaped into the woods. And in order to survive out on their own, they resorted to cannibalism to survive. Also, it's said they have these large melon heads as a result of inbreeding through generations, which have caused a medical condition called hydrocephalus, which is fluid buildup in the head. Some people still claim you really need to watch out for them in some parts of Connecticut and Ohio. Crazy story. If you want to hear more stories like this, I just did a longer video on the melon heads right here. Go check it out right there.
Beware the melon heads.
This mall Santa Claus was also Toronto's scariest serial killer. 67-year-old Bruce MacArthur murdered 8 men in downtown Toronto from 2010 to 2018. He was previously married with a woman and had 2 children with her, but little did they know about his double life. Many people who knew Bruce described him as sweet and outgoing, and they never imagined he would do something like this. In 2010, gay men in Toronto began going missing, and unfortunately, after some time, their cases stopped getting so much attention. Bruce first met these men on dating apps, and when he met them in person, he took their lives. He targeted marginalized men, which in this case were gay men of color. He strangled them and then dismembered their bodies and then put their body parts in planters. Bruce even took photos of his victims when they were alive and then deceased. This is one of his victims who got away after almost being murdered by Bruce. In 2018, police began discovering dismembered body parts of some of the 8 missing men on the property of one of Bruce's clients who hired him as a landscaper. And finally, in 2019, Bruce pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison.
See how that play out, man. Sickening story. These double eyes, man. You don't know where they're gonna lead to.
This woman came up with a disturbing and evil plan to get revenge after finding out that her fiancé cheated on her. Now, you would think that she would seek revenge on her fiancé, but no, she had his mistress and her entire family murdered. Then she took her own life. If you want to know the full story, head over to my YouTube. I just uploaded a detailed video. Melinda Palomo and Nathaniel Hugh Jr. were in a 10-year relationship when she found out about his affair with his co-worker Zoraida Bartolome, who was also a married woman with 2 young kids. Instead of leaving Nathaniel for cheating, Melinda came up with this plan to manipulate him into murdering his mistress and her family. And that is exactly what happened. Melinda created various social media accounts and posed as a cartel leader and told Nathaniel that he needed to take out Zoraida and her family because she was a mole in the organization. The entire time, Nathaniel believed that he needed to do this because they were orders from the cartel, and he had absolutely no idea that these orders were coming from his jealous fiancé. In September 2023, Nathaniel broke into Zoraida's home and took out Zoraida, her husband, and her 2 kids, who were only 7 and 10 years old, and he also took out their 3 dogs. But this case ends with the biggest twist, because when police found out that Nathaniel and Ermelinda were involved in the family's murder, they both ended up taking their own lives before police could arrest them.
Russia has just announced that they've developed a vaccine against cancer, and they'll be giving it out to patients for free early 2025. So, how true is this? Well, firstly, they say that the type of cancer treatment they are developing involves creating personalized mRNA vaccines for each patient based on their individual tumor profiles. Experts say that this is a highly complex process, but an innovative approach to cancer treatment. And to be fair, their preclinical trials on mice have shown promising results, such as the dissolution of tumors and the metastases in cases like melanoma. But humans are not mice, and they do not have large-scale human data available yet. So the idea that this could be launched in general circulation by early 2025 without human trials means no credible medical body would approve such a vaccine for general use. And on top of that, the human trial phase and the subsequent scientific scrutiny and regulatory review can take several years. So there definitely should be optimism, because why not? Cancer cures being given out in Russia for free in just a few months probably won't happen.
Weirdest kids took.
I'm about to say that was kind of sounding iffy, man, because they didn't have the data, I guess, to back that up. Maybe that's why they just trying to roll it out earlier this year, man, to collect that data. See, it always comes at a cost, man. If something sounds too good to be true, most likely there's some strings behind it.
Was ever, part 40. Now everybody knows who that is. Well, in 1966 they decided to turn him into a water gun, but it had a couple flaws. Well, first off, his face. Next up was where the water went in. And to top it all off, the trigger. You're telling me nobody at DC saw an issue with this? What the fuck?
Mysterious videos that can't be explained. So almost everybody has heard of or seen the Men in Black movies.
Classic.
They follow government agents whose jobs are to keep people quiet after they encounter aliens. However, there may be proof that there are real-life Men in Black. In 2009, a few guests staying at a hotel in the United States encountered these weird lights in the night sky. They weren't really sure what it was that they saw, but they took this picture. And then just 2 days after the guests had left the hotel, 2 mysterious men dressed in all black came to the hotel asking about those people. The security camera shows 2 tall men dressed in all black walking directly to the receptionist at the hotel. The receptionist went on record saying that the 2 men had no eyebrows, no eyelashes, and were extremely pale. And they were only asking questions about the guests who had seen the lights. Many people believe that these 2 men were the real-life Men in Black.
People are freaking out
Fit the description.
what is actually happening at Disney. I'm sure you've heard about, probably seen photos of the creepy Disney animatronics. The fact that they stay on all night long, forever. But if you've ever been on the Spaceship Earth ride in Epcot, you probably haven't seen this. People have been talking about the creepy animatronics in Disney for a long time, but no one has physically seen this one for a long time. So of course the Spaceship Earth ride takes you on like a journey through time. It starts at like cavemen and the Egyptians and then goes all the way to the introduction of the internet. Bear in mind, this ride opened in 1982, so it's definitely not new, even though it's had a few refurbs, with the last one being in 2007. At the top of Spaceship Earth, when you go into like the dome, there's this control tower which is actually built on the side of the wall. Added in like astronauts and a few other things here, but over time they got rid of these things and took them away. However, in the control tower is this woman, sitting there in the control tower. Because this thing was literally built on the side of the walls, when they took away some of this space stuff, they just left this here. And over all the windows at the top, they painted black so you can't even see it. But they didn't remove this animatronic. It is still in there right now, behind this black glass, reportedly still moving. I've also heard many people saying that they literally took all of the like figment off of her clothes, the skin, so it's literally just like a robot. I don't want to say that. Still in there moving after like 40 years.
I bet you didn't know that this animal can talk.
Going on?
Seals are found all over the world and are known to be cute, cuddly-looking creatures. However, it's recently been confirmed that seals are able to imitate human speech, much like certain kinds of birds. And in the 1970s, a man from the state of Maine in the United States took care of a baby seal that he found abandoned on the shore. The old man who found him named him Hoover, and he took care of him as his own pet for a while before he had to eventually give him up to a New England aquarium. However, what Hoover's owner didn't know is that while he was taking care of the seal, Hoover was listening to the man's speech patterns and was eventually able to replicate it. While living in the aquarium, Hoover began to imitate and mimic the sounds and speech patterns of his old owner. And he even spoke in a Boston accent just like his caretaker. Just listen for yourself.
That's amazing, man. I didn't even know Sis can do that. Mimicking the voice? He definitely had a Boston accent,
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Tom Holland is now the same age that Tobey Maguire was when he first became Spider-Man. Barbie went to the moon before women were allowed to open credit cards without a male co-signer. The release of Toy Story is now closer in time to the moon landing than today. If you're a millennial, you were born closer to the moon landing than today. 75% of the time you will ever spend with your kids is gone by the time that they're 12. 90% of that time is gone by the time they're going to college. The universe might actually be 26.7 billion years old according to a recent study. This would make it nearly double the widely believed age of 13.7 billion years. From the time it was discovered to the time it lost its status as a planet, Pluto made it less than 1/3 of the way around the sun. We only recently found out that the sun was made of hydrogen and helium. Julius Caesar lived closer in time to us than he did the Great Pyramids. The last known battle involving samurai happened less than 150 years ago. This might be the most disturbing case in
Battle of Shimaroma. I've heard that before, man. Those facts, man, they really mess with the perception of time.
Human history, and before I begin, you've been warned. On January 19th, 1996, the mutilated remains of Diao Aiqing, who disappeared 9 days prior, were found across multiple locations in China. Her body had been dismembered into over 2,000 pieces. The case remains unsolved, and it's one of the most notorious crimes in Chinese history. On January 10th, 1996 in the evening, Diao and her college roommate were punished for the illegal use of an electric appliance. After a conflict with the dormitory management, she left the building and did not return. Diao was last seen alive wearing a red coat with a black lining. She was reported missing, but her family was not notified by the authorities until January 19th. The discovery of Diao's remains in the winter of January 19th was first reported by a sanitary worker. Initially, he thought it was pork, so he brought it home for food. And while preparing the meat for himself, 3 human fingers were found in it. The worker then reported the discovery to the police, and they confirmed they were human fingers. Human remains in plastic-wrapped packages were eventually discovered across 8 locations around the university, including at a stadium, entrance gate, hospital, and along roadsides. The police later confirmed that the scattered remains were of Diao's and informed her father to visit Beijing. Between January 20th and 30th, Diao's head and clothes were found. More than 2,000 human remains were recovered. Diao's head and internal organs were boiled for several days. Crucial organs including the heart, liver, and spleen were never found.
The forensics team was only able to identify the remains as belonging to a female through the analysis of body hair and muscle tissue. Relatives of Diao were able to identify her through a mole on her right cheek. A senior officer involved in the case described the killing as really cruel, which in my opinion is a nice way to put it. The officer also added that the pieces of flesh were dissected with high precision, only achieved by an individual with great understanding of anatomy. Police concluded that the murderer must have been a professional butcher or surgeon. Teachers and students then became the subject of investigation. 2 suspect profiles were brought up, including a single physical fit middle-aged male. However, the university department could not find any individuals that matched the characteristics of the profile. A major investigation was launched in the university and the areas around, but no major clues of the crime were found and the case failed to make any progress. In 2016, Nanjing police told the family of Diao that the case is still under investigation.
Wow.
Okay, so let's talk about this case for a second. If the killer was never found and he had the skill to dissect somebody into 2,000 pieces and never get caught with it, don't you think he might be a serial killer? And if he was, how many more people do you think he murdered after Diao? The dedication and skill, and honestly the obsession to cut somebody into 2,000 pieces and not get caught with it is crazy. This person could be walking around the streets of China today doing the same things to other people that he did to Diao. The thought of that is absolutely disturbing, and may Diao rest in peace.
Rest in peace, man. He hit everything on the nail on the head on his last statements.
In 1993, when only my head was found, there was no way to figure out who I was. Even with a sketch of my face and a clay mold, no one could identify me. But 29 years later, in 2022, my identity was finally uncovered, linking me to a disappearance that happened on Christmas in 1992. But how did they figure out my name? And what was the story behind my disappearance? I'll explain. I'm Susan Lund, and back then, my family, especially my kids, thought I had abandoned them. It all started on January 27th, 1993, when 2 girls, aged 10 and 12, were walking through Wayne Fitzgerald State Park in Illinois. They noticed something strange in the bushes. When they got closer, they found my head. Just my head. There were no other parts of my body around. You can imagine the shock. The girls ran and told the police, who came to the scene. That's when the mystery really began. The head belonged to a woman, but the police couldn't determine the cause of death. And even though they searched the entire park, they found absolutely nothing else. Some investigators believed that someone could have driven by and simply tossed the head out of a car. But there was no way to know for sure. It was hard to make any identification. The police could only estimate that I was between 30 and 50 years old, and had likely lost my life about 3 days before they found me. This detail, that I'd been unalived for 3 days, would become crucial years later, in 2022, when they finally identified me. A sketch of my face was made and shared with the media, especially the newspapers around at the time. Remember, this was 1993. They also noted that I had worn braces and had a silver tooth, but that wasn't enough information. No one came forward to identify me, and the investigation hit a dead end because there were no other clues. Then it became clear why no one recognized me. I had disappeared about 200 miles away in another state. After a few weeks, the case went cold. The police had no more leads and found nothing else. And so it stayed unsolved for 28 years. In 2021, one of the investigators, who was about to retire, decided to give it one more shot. With help from a professor of anthropology at the University of New Hampshire, they reanalyzed my remains, now just bones. They managed to extract new DNA samples using more advanced technology. They also made a new sketch, but again, no one recognized my face. However, this time, they were able to identify me through the DNA samples. They used genealogy to build a profile and entered the data into a database with millions of people's information. There was a match. The DNA led them to my family. They quickly discovered that a member of this family had disappeared on Christmas Eve in 1992. Me, Susan Lund. I was 25 years old, had 3 kids, and was pregnant at the time of my disappearance. One of my sisters provided DNA for comparison, just to be sure. All the clues fit, and it was confirmed to be me. So, what happened to me? On December 24th, 1992, I left my home in Clarksville, Tennessee to go to the market. I was going to buy ingredients to bake a cake. I left my children at home with their father, a soldier. He reported me missing and was also investigated, but wasn't considered a suspect since he had stayed home with the kids that night. My children were 6, 4, and 2 years old at the time. Authorities searched for me in the months after my disappearance, but found no leads. My children grew up believing I had abandoned them, but my sisters insisted I had no reason to leave. In 2022, after I was identified, my middle daughter said she was relieved to know I didn't abandon them after all. Sadly, my husband had passed away a few years after my disappearance, so he never knew I was identified. But even with my identification, there's a new mystery. Remember the police said I had likely died just 3 days before they found my head? Well, I disappeared on December 24th, but my head wasn't discovered until January 27th. This suggests I was alive for almost a month before I lost my life. So where was I during that time, and where is the rest of my body? That's what the police are still trying to figure out. There's even a $10,000 reward for any information that helps solve the case. And let's not forget, my head was found almost 200 miles from my home. Who took me there? The investigation has been reopened, and even though it's been 30 years, maybe one day we'll find out what really happened to me.
This is why you should always change your locks. In 2017, a college girl woke up from a nightmare drenched in sweat and decided to rinse off before going back to sleep. She propped her phone on a shelf, turned on some music, and then hopped in the shower. A few minutes later, she reaches for her phone to change the song, but stops suddenly. Reflected on her phone's screen was a person standing in the middle of her bathroom facing the shower. She somehow kept her composure, turned the water to scalding hot, and then ripped open the curtain and sprayed the intruder in the face. As they howled in pain, she ran past them to her kitchen to get her butcher's knife. In a panic, she can't find her knife, so she just runs out of the apartment and calls the police. The police go in and come out with a crazy-looking woman in handcuffs. One of the officers comes over to the girl and says she used to live here and she had copies of your keys. Then he pauses and looks down and brings up a clear evidence bag that contained her butcher's knife, and he says, "Looks like she wanted her apartment back." There's something terrible.
What? So she wanted her apartment back, and because she had a copy of the key, she just went in there unannounced. Can somebody even do something like that, Seekers? Is that even legal? I don't think so, right? People are crazy in this world now. That's insane.
Terrifying going on at Chuck E. Cheese right now, and I'm going to explain it to you. So we all know about the game Five Nights at Freddy's, right? It's a game based around a restaurant that's pretty much like a Chuck E. Cheese where the animatronics come to life and wreak havoc on all the guests there. But what if I told you this was possibly happening in real life right now?
No way.
Just 2 days ago, 5 children have gone missing inside of a Chuck E. Cheese, and the parents reported a weird smell from the inside of the building. And then just like Five Nights at Freddy's, someone that worked the late night shift actually got killed after hours. Now these are all pretty weird, but here's the kicker right here. Check out this headline. Night shift workers from Chuck E. Cheese claim strange movement from animatronics post hours. So I don't know, what do you think about this? Do you think it's real? Do you think it's fake? And I mean with 2020 and everything going on, like I wouldn't be shocked if it was real.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 1. When creating the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, they couldn't create skeletons that looked realistic enough, so they used real human skeletons. Since then, they've removed all but one. Ducks sometimes become cannibals due to boredom, meaning they kill and eat each other. This behavior begins as early as 4 weeks old. Crocodiles are capable of galloping, similar to a horse. Luckily, alligators cannot. And while we're at it, tarantulas can swim. It's extremely common after you die that there will be extreme gas buildup and you will burp after death. And sometimes dead bodies can even sit up on their own. Also, if a pregnant woman dies, the gas buildup in her body can actually forcefully push a baby out. In other words, a post-mortem baby bazooka. Hearing is the last bodily function to go after one dies. So it's very possible that the last thing you ever hear is the paramedic calling off your CPR.
This is why you shouldn't.
Those are some crazy facts we learn, Seekers, man. That's where you gotta tap in with us, man. I never in a million years would ever guess, man, that tarantulas can swim and he can, he said the alligators, they were galloping? What the hell? This is when they got to upgrade like that, man. I'm telling you, man. You tap in with us, Seekers, you gonna learn some new information, man, daily.
Never stay in sketchy motels. In 2005, a young woman on a solo road trip across the country decided to stop for the night. The first place she sees is the Mountaintop Motel. It looked pretty cheap, but she was tired, so she said good enough. The check-in guy eyed her up and down very uncomfortably and then asked her if she was traveling alone. She ignores the question, pays for her room, and then walks away with the key. When she gets inside her room and sees there are literally cockroaches in her bed, she says nope and decides to sleep in her car in the parking lot. Around 3 a.m., she wakes up to see the check-in guy using his own keys to get into the motel room she was supposed to be in. A few minutes later, he storms out and slams the door and starts walking towards her car. Terrified, she hides under her blanket as the man tries to open her car doors but can't and walks away. She speeds off and calls her friend and asks her to look up the address of Mountaintop Motel so she can give it to police. Her friend's quiet for a second and then just says, the Mountaintop Motel closed a week ago. If someone offers you this, walk away. In 2016, a man was staying at his friend's cabin in the woods when he decided to go for an evening stroll. A little ways down the trail, he hears someone call out from behind his neighbor's house. He looks up and he sees this skinny guy pop out from behind the building who starts waving frantically at him to come over. Worried this guy could be in trouble, the man takes off running to assist. But when he gets close enough, the neighbor just offers him a fistful of Slim Jims and starts talking about how much he hates his wife. Sensing there was something wrong with this guy, he says no thank you to the Slim Jims and walks away. The next day, the man calls his friend who owned the cabin to ask him what the deal was with his weirdo neighbor. There was silence on the phone, and then his friend just says, I don't have any neighbors. The police are called, and it turns out his neighbor was really some lunatic who had recently killed his wife and had been hiding out in the abandoned cabin next door. This is why...
That's why, man, my parents always say, don't talk to strangers. Like, he could have been the next... He could have been next, man. He didn't even know. He just offered him some Slim Jim talking about how he didn't like his wife. Like, the signs were there, man. You gotta pay attention to what people say nowadays, man, because every time somebody says something, bro, and if it sounds weird, especially talking about how he hated his wife and just offered him Slim Jims, that's bizarre enough already. And you in the woods at that. He's a brave soul. I don't know how he did it. If I was in the woods, you see somebody you don't know, deuces, I'm out. You ain't getting me.
You always say yes to tandoori chicken. In 2012, a high school tutor and her student stayed up so late one night studying that by the time they were done, the buses had stopped running. Without another way home, the student asked if he could stay the night at her place. Reluctantly, she agreed. When they got back to the apartment, she fell asleep on her bed and he fell asleep on a blanket next to her bed on the ground. A few hours later, she wakes up to the boy standing awkwardly in the middle of the room with a very strange look on his face. She asks him, what's wrong? He looks at her and says, I'm really hungry, let's go get some tandoori chicken. Confused, she says, it's 2 a.m., just get a snack in the cupboard. And he grabs her by the arm and he says, no, we are getting tandoori chicken right now. And he yanks her from the bed. Feeling totally caught off guard by this whole situation, she goes into the hall with the boy, and as soon as the door shuts behind them, she can tell that he is terrified. He looks at her and just says, I'm not actually hungry. When I woke up, there was someone under your bed. This is why you should always trust your gut. In the early 1970s, a college student decided to hitchhike his way home after class. A car pulls up, a man offers him a ride, and he climbs in. As soon as the car started moving, the student felt totally uneasy, like something was wrong but he couldn't quite place it. Without saying anything, he waited till the next time they slowed down and he flung the door open and ran away. 2 years later, he's flicking through TV channels when he comes across this special interview with a death row inmate. And it's just the audio recording, so he hears the interviewer ask the inmate, why did you remove all the door handles inside of your car? The man just goes, well, the first time I tried to kill someone, I picked up a college hitchhiker who got smart at some point and jumped out of my car. So, lesson learned, remove all the door handles. When they showed his
he knew.
Picture, the student knew immediately that he was supposed to be the first victim of John Wayne Gacy, aka the killer clown, who had killed over 30 men and boys in his clown room and stuffed them into his basement. This is why you should always trust...
Sorry for pausing 2 times there, man, but I just had to explain this one, bro. That's why people say, man, when you have to trust your gut sometimes because, bro, your gut it'll never steer you wrong, man. He had a feeling that something was off, man. As soon as he stopped, he jumped out the damn car. And look what happened. Flicking through the channels. And what came to pass? He was right on the money, man. You gotta trust your gut sometimes, bro. You just have to. Even if everybody's saying, "Oh no, bro." If there's a gut feeling, man, and you don't trust it, then just get away from that situation. That's actually one of the most insane stories you heard, Seekers.
Trust your gut.
Tap in with
In the
us.
1970s, a young couple decided to go for a late-night hike in the woods. A couple minutes into their walk, and the man remembers thinking, something's not right. He tells his girlfriend, but they just decide to ignore it and keep going, until he steps on something that felt really soft, like it was alive. Before he has a chance to see what he stepped on, they hear all this rustling in the bushes next to them, and they bolt. Years later, that couple turns on the TV, and a death row inmate who's about to be executed is being interviewed.
Again.
And they ask him, was there ever a time that you were almost caught red-handed? He responded, yes, one time. I was in the woods, and a couple walked through, and the man actually stepped on the body of a girl I had just killed. I was hiding in the bushes just a few feet away. They didn't see me. That couple had run into one of the worst serial killers of all time, Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
So supposedly this is what the fallen angel Lucifer looks like. And this is what the moon looked like on March 31st, 2020. I don't know about any of you guys, but this is scary, especially with everything going on in the world right now. Pretty cool!
Let this be a
was
reminder
similar?
that there really are monsters out there. In 2007, a woman living right near a prison in California got home late one night and went right to bed. Around midnight, she woke up to footsteps on her first floor, assumed it was her roommate, so she goes downstairs to say hi. She yells out to her roommate, who doesn't say anything, and then in walks this giant man who she doesn't recognize. She runs upstairs, jumps in her closet into the crawl space, and hides. As she's helplessly tucked away in this little crawl space, trying not to make any sound, all she hears is this giant man sprinting around her house, running into walls, flipping furniture, and screaming in frustration because he can't find her. Finally, after several hours, she slowly opens the crawl space back up, crawls out, and gets her phone off the nightstand and calls police. As she's telling the police her story, she describes the person who had broken in, and they stop her and say, "Ma'am, go back in the crawl space and stay there. We'll be there as soon as we can." It turned out a 6'11" convicted murderer had escaped the prison and was still on the loose.
Damn. She was living next to prison. I could never do that. I don't see how people can do that. I understand people need houses and stuff, but living next to a prison, that's just like asking for trouble. Because like I said, they have like direct access to the house, and as soon as they escape, they just gonna try to go into one of the people's houses. Word of advice, man, don't live next to a prison. I'm pretty sure I don't have to say that, but you never know. Is that an edit? Yeah, that's an edit. Call it like I see it.
If you scare easily, I wouldn't watch this video. In 2013, a mine explorer found this entrance to an abandoned mine and decided to go have a look around. He decides to film his experience and upload it to his YouTube channel, where he had uploaded hundreds of other videos of him exploring mines, but he never once references the paranormal or ghosts or anything like that until this video. As soon as he steps foot inside, he tells the camera that he has a really uneasy feeling about being there and wonders if he should even keep going, but he does. Everything seems pretty normal until he gets to a section in the mine where there's a bunch of chains hanging down from the ceiling. He hears something in the back of the tunnel, so he pulls his flashlight out and he shines it towards the back, and he sees a chain swinging, and it shouldn't be, because there's no draft and he's all alone, and you can tell he's scared by the way he starts talking. Although he's totally freaked out, he wants to know what's causing the chain to swing, so he goes farther and farther into the mine until he hears something. People whispering in every direction. He gets totally spooked and runs out. If you don't want to sleep tonight, watch the whole video. This is why you should never open your door for strangers. In 2013, a woman let her dog out to use the bathroom one more time before bed. After only a few minutes, she starts hearing scratching on her door, which is typically the sound her dog makes when he's ready to come in. But it just seemed way too soon for him to be done being outside. So she decides to look through the peephole to make sure it really is her dog. But what she sees is terrifying. A deranged-looking man is right outside her door, staring intently at her door handle, waiting for it to turn open. As she's looking in horror, unable to do anything, he starts scratching at the door as hard as he can, never leaving his gaze from the door handle. She manages to stifle a scream, she backs away and realizes her dog is still outside. So she goes to the side window, but there's no sign of her dog, and so she goes back to the door to see if maybe the man's moved. He hasn't moved, his mouth is open, and he's staring directly at the peephole. Then he turns around and walks away. With the man gone, she discovers her dog unharmed, his leash had just been cut. But that means he had a knife.
Terrifying facts about the ocean. Let's get into it. So we've explored
Damn, we didn't even get the terrifying acts of the ocean, man. We've seen a couple of them, man, but I was really excited to see what he had to say, man. These videos were like, I had to find these part 2s for y'all, man. I know y'all I see in the comments, y'all be irked like me too, man, when they don't finish off the story. I gotta do a deep dive and find these part 2s for y'all, man, but we're gonna find them. That's crazy, man. There's some crazy facts today, man. There's some crazy stories. You guys, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker. Once again, thank you guys for supporting the channel, for subscribing, hitting that post notification bell, man, hitting that like button, man. Like I said, when you guys do those simple steps, man, that pushes us in the algorithm, man, we can connect with other people, man. We're growing. I see the progress we're making with each and every video, so I'm thankful for you guys. Like I said, we're going to continue to grind. We're going to continue to get better with each and every video. I'm doing daily uploads for you guys. You guys can catch you in the next one. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.